Welcome to episode number 18 of the Castbar. It is time to pack your bags for California because Blizzcon 2015 has been announced. Being a guild leader can be strenuous, so let's take a closer look at how to not to destroy yourself when your children won't behave. Finally, let's step into the crumbling Shadowfang Keep for review. Thank you, and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Castbar. Today is Sunday, March 15th at approximately 6:20 Pacific Standard Time. Evan is out sick, so with me I have Florian.
How's it going?
It's going good. And returning with us again is Tony.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's going good. It's been a week. I've had a pretty good week as I have new job opportunities and new home dwelling opportunities that are arising, which is good, so life can be less crazy and hectic. What about you guys? Anything new going
on? Not too much. Job is starting to pan out a little better.
That's good.
Working more.
Money's good. I heard money.
Good.
I heard money is important.
Yeah, still recovering from moving to Georgia, so that's a thing. Other than that, been playing lots of Diablo.
And now your season ends.
Yeah, that was kind of disappointing. It's like, oh, it's over already. Okay.
I know you were playing a lot of Diablo there for a while, Florian. Have you still been maintaining your crazy passion?
I did for a while, and then I came to a very stark realization that wizards are just not very good right now. And I kind of wanted to start over on another class, but I was like, you know what, I'll just wait till next season. Well, so I'm just kind of benched for right now.
Well, like, all the classes in that game have this problem of, like, if you don't have a particular gear set, then they're just kind of garbage. Like, you have to have all of the... Like, for wizards right now, you have to have all the Firebirds, or they're just no good.
Exactly. And it's just, at least some of the classes have multiple options, but for wizards, it's either Firebird or nothing else. And then even when you have the Firebird set, you're still not as strong as other classes are in the end game.
Yeah, you run around screaming a lot.
Yeah, basically. Wizards are badly in need of reworking right now.
Well, they don't necessarily need reworked, but they're getting their gear sets are being changed for the next patch/season. And like monks, I mean, we needed like 3 different sets and a particular weapon to be able to compete. But that's just a problem with like higher end Diablo. I mean, it's no different than needing like, higher gear levels and stuff for going from normal to heroic rating. You're just going from, Torment 1 or 2 to Torment 5 or 6.
Well, there is a difference in that at least in WoW you have choices of what kind of spec you want to play. There are different ways you can play. Whereas with Diablo, since there's only 1, maybe 2 armor sets that work at high level, you're pretty much pigeonholed into one specific playstyle for your class, whether you enjoy that playstyle or not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, anything else besides being sad about Diablo going on, Florian?
Well, I'm also sad because I won't be leaving my current station for at least another couple months.
What?
I got
Why?
that bad news. Because Army. That's why. Just because Army.
Because they like to be rude?
Exactly. But I will definitely be leaving here sometime in May, so I will be extremely happy.
That'd be cool. But yeah, that is also unfortunate.
Well, I guess that's just one of the things about the military, because we all know the military is not exactly the most apt at getting any form of paperwork done.
That is definitely true.
Alright, let's get into the news. Welcome to the news, everybody. So the probably biggest and most important thing of the news is that BlizzCon has been announced. Yay! As always, it's going to be at the Anaheim Convention Center. November 6th and 7th, so Friday and Saturday. For those of you who have been confused, BlizzCon is a 2-day event. Sunday, there's a bunch of stuff that happens, but none of it is done by Blizzard. That's all done by somebody else. I'm not entirely sure who does all that stuff, but I know it's not Blizzard. Tickets are going to be $199, and one thing that I wanted to let you guys know that if you are going, or if you even think about going, you need to figure it out now, and you need to buy everything now. And the reason that I say that is that one of the hotels right around the convention center is already sold out.
Mm-hmm.
You can't wait. Even like this is one of the frustrating things about BlizzCon is because things like the hotel and like stuff like that, and like the earlier you buy a ticket for if you have to fly there, generally that's the cheaper it is, the earlier you buy it. But the thing is, the tickets are so hard to get. So, like, the tickets go on sale Wednesday, April 15th at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Saturday, April 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, what this means is that you need to be online, ready to go, at Eventbrite to buy the tickets right then and there, because otherwise you won't get tickets. Now, there are ways to get tickets otherwise. I mean, sometimes you can find, people who... A lot of people will buy extras. It's like, I was able to buy mine, so I will, buy 4 of them, and I'll just sell off the rest. And normally people are pretty good about not being the scalpers to be like, $1,000 for my BlizzCon ticket. Normally it's like, if the ticket was $200, normally they'll only sell it for $200, maybe $225, depending on the person. But you really have to commit to what you're doing here. Have either of you went to BlizzCon before?
No.
Unfortunately not, although I would very much like to go.
Have either of you went to a larger convention in general before, like San Diego Comic-Con or A-Con in Texas or Dragon Con? These are some of the bigger ones that I'm aware of.
I have never been to any conventions. I'd kind of like to go, but the large number of sweaty nerds kind of puts me off a little bit.
I have been to A-Con twice, actually. It was pretty entertaining. When I went, it was back, it was like A-Con number 14 and 15? Actually, I think I went 3 times, yeah. 14, 15, and 16. They were really good, and when I went, they were like 10,000 strong on attendees. And now I hear it's much more than that.
That's a lot of people.
And I thought it was insane with 10,000 people. Oh yeah, that is so many people.
Did you have because every convention is different. Because there's very limited number of tickets for BlizzCon, very limited number of tickets for San Diego Comic-Con because they're a little bit more prestigious events. What is it like for A-Con? Did you have any problems with getting tickets, or were you just able to walk up to the door and buy them?
Well, A-Con each year I pre-ordered my tickets, which is a good idea because you usually get the best. Most conventions, when you order tickets for them, they have if you pay 6, 7, 8 months beforehand, you get all 3 days for a discounted rate. If you the closer you get to the con, if they haven't sold out yet, the price of the tickets go up. And they're most expensive in most cases the day of the con. Now,
assuming
with something
that they're not sold out?
Assuming that... Well, usually they actually have a limit of pre-orders of 3-day passes, but they'll have a much larger amount of single-day passes.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go to just one of the days, which most of the time I've honestly felt like going to just a single day seems kind of silly, from what you miss out if you don't. And a lot of times as well in most conventions, if you pay for single days, it will cost more for the first 2 days, whereas the last day will be cheaper because usually not as much is going on.
Right. So, Florian, is it not really an option for you because of work or money? I mean, because you could technically drive there. You're closer than anybody else out of the people that we've spoken to.
Well, by the time BlizzCon rolls around, I will no longer be here.
Oh, that's
so
true. Yeah, okay.
Driving will not be an option anymore.
Well, it'll still be an option. It's just a less awesome one. Driving from you're expecting Texas, right?
Well, for a short while. By the time BlizzCon rolls out, I'll be at my final station in Hawaii. So
Oh, okay. Never mind. You won't be able to drive from there.
You can drive from Hawaii. It's just an ocean.
They were talking for a very. There was a. It was like 7 years ago. Someone mentioned something about let's build a bridge to Hawaii, and everyone was like, "Why?"
Well, you know.
Reasons. It's important.
You have to show the ocean who's in charge.
Yeah, I have to show the ocean who's boss. That's why.
Exactly.
I unfortunately won't be able to go. Between like needing to moving's so expensive. I mean, your expenses are all paid by the army, right, Florian?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fortunately, yes.
And like we're still renting, which sucks. And so we're gonna be moving to a new place at rent, so you have to pay a whole new security deposit. I don't like it. It's lame. But so unfortunately we'll not be able to go this year for BlizzCon, which is sad because if there was a year to go, I want to go this year because like I have a feeling it's going to be a huge BlizzCon. I mean, between like they will most likely announce a new WoW expansion at this because if they are trying to hold true to that, wanting to speed up the WoW expansions and make the content more rapid on release and not have these big overlays, they would have to announce a new expansion at this BlizzCon. Or they would have to announce it at some sort of con around that time, because otherwise it's going to look like it's, the same distance out. And then Heroes of the Storm will have either launched by that time, or will have an announced launch date, as well as probably a pile of like new features and a new map and stuff. And then probably we'll get the next Diablo expansion, because we know they're working on one of those. Overwatch goes into beta in the fall, which I imagine will go into beta either like the week. Fall is a really broad term because it's from like October. It's from like September to December is technically the definition of fall.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Overwatch went into beta the Tuesday after BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine they'll have a whole bunch of announcements for Overwatch. Probably even release dates. They'd have to have pricing info at that point on whether it's going to be free or a single purchase model. And then we're supposed to get the StarCraft expansion, Legacy of the Void. The beta for that supposed to start this summer, if I remember correctly. And so we'll probably get a whole bunch of information on that. I mean, and because Blizzard is pushing into the esports scene, I mean, there's also going to be things like, is Heroes of the Dorm taking place at BlizzCon?
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, the Heroes of the Storm little, my brain's failing me.
Heroes of the Dorm, let's pay for kids' college students, college tuition. And then, of course, the Hearthstone, tournament always happens at BlizzCon now. So it's going to be a big BlizzCon, and it makes me sad. And there's also rumor that Blizzard is working on another new game, which could also be announced at this BlizzCon, which means that this BlizzCon might just explode my brain.
Yeah. That could be crazy.
It'd be like, oh, what's that? Oh, that was Michael's brain. It's gone.
It would actually be kind of nice, because I felt like, I don't know if not necessarily this previous BlizzCon, but a couple of them have been pretty much a World of Warcraft con.
Yeah, well, Blizzard is realizing, especially now that Hearthstone makes so much money, they're trying to move away from, like, Warcraft is still their flagship, because it's their, big successful, we modeled all MMOs for the future forever, game. But, I mean, Hearthstone makes so much money.
Yeah.
I mean, I just spent like $30 on Hearthstone this morning because I wanted to open some more packs. That's 2 months of WoW subscription.
Yep.
Because I'm a tool.
I wouldn't say that. You just like card games.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving away. But seriously though, if you're gonna go, buy your hotel, buy your plane ticket, and everything now. You will figure out a way to get a ticket, even if you screw up buying the tickets online. There's 2 chances to buy the tickets online. There's tons and tons of groups of people you can find on like Reddit and probably like the WoW forums and stuff of like buying BlizzCon ticket groups, and it's like, okay, we're all going to be on Skype or whatever, or on the phone, trying to reduce your bandwidth limit as much as possible. And it's like, whoever gets in there and is able to buy tickets buys tickets for all 4 of us, and then we'll just pay you back the money. There's ways to do it. So if you want to go, just you know, when I looked, it was going to be $1,000 for everything. So $200 for the ticket, $800 for the plane and the hotel combined. And then also, if you're going to go, I really recommend making sure you bring pocket change, because there's always lots of cool things at any convention and BlizzCon, and it's not cheap.
Yeah. A rule that I've instated into my mind, if you're going to go to any convention at all, is that you go to the convention and you make sure you bring at least, I would say, and this is going to sound outrageous, but it's true, at least bring $1,000 for the convention that you can just blow and not worry about. If you have it, it would make it better. Because what happens is you're going to go to these conventions, you're going to walk around, you go to any of the dealers' areas, and you'll find something, and you'll be like, ooh, that looks cool.
And it's going to be $70.
If you haven't brought enough money that you can just go, I'm going to buy this right this instant, what's going to happen is you're going to go, I'll come back to it because I want to look at the rest of the con first. You look at the rest of the con, and then you come back to buy the thing that you saw, and it's gone. So then you move to the next thing that you had on the list, and that's gone. And I've experienced this too many times to now know that, yes, bring money. It's worth it.
All right. So, and then also keep an eye out on BlizzCon. There's tons and tons of things that happen around BlizzCon that aren't necessarily put on by Blizzard, like World of Podcasts. A couple people rent out like a hotel room or a small little side area, and a whole bunch of podcast people just take their turn podcasting live from BlizzCon. It's really cool. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that happens there, and you know, people will go down to like the restaurant, or there's like a bowling alley that's like a block away that I know a bunch of people go to. So just keep your eye out if you're going. You will. If you go the day before, you won't regret it, because there's always already going to be a ton of people there. So go and have fun. Yeah. Let's move on. This one should be quick. Legendary quest line alt boost for alts. If you have completed a ring, which I'm not sure how much longer we have until we complete our rings, but after you've completed a ring, then you will get bonus drops for your alts. So like your abrogator stones, your elemental runes, and whatever else they make us go pick up from probably the next raid, you will get more of those on alts after you have completed a ring on one of your characters. And I don't believe it matters which I don't think it matters they didn't say, but I don't think it would matter server, faction, anything like that. Just if you've completed one, then you can you'd get a bonus to a little catch up on your alts. It worked that way with the cloak, right? Did you get your cloak, Florian?
No, I did not.
Okay. If I remember correctly, it worked that way with the cloak. I have my cloak, I just don't remember. Anyway, so good news for people who like to run lots of alts and want a ring on all of them. Blackrock Foundry gear is getting a boost in item level. So, if any of your gear that you have from Blackrock Foundry, whether it's from Raid Finder or Mythic, is going to be getting 5 extra item levels in the near future. They did this because they wanted Blackrock Foundry loot to feel more meaningful, because it was like, there wasn't enough of an upgrade if you were going from, normal High Mall to normal Blackrock. So the only thing about this is that, because they kept talking about going from one raid tier to another, I was under the impression that High Mall and Blackrock were technically supposed to be the same raid tier.
That was my impression as well. So I really don't understand what Blizzard's trying to accomplish here. So I mean, they're both supposed to be the same tier, and what they're essentially doing is invalidating a lot of high maul gear. Like right now, high maul normal mode is completely pointless to run because now the Blackrock Foundry LFR gears equal an item level.
Ah, that's not cool. I still need to do more
cool
high
at all.
maul to get my abrogator stones for that stupid ring.
Yeah, that's pretty much going to kill pug modes. Pretty much all pugs for normal mode high maul.
Well, and that makes normal Blackrock only, 5 item levels lower than heroic high maul? Is that right? 665, 655.
Equivalent.
They're
It's
the
the exact same item level. Yep.
Ugh, that's so bad.
Yeah, it's a very strange decision, and Blizzard's reasoning just doesn't make any sense. At least the reasoning that they gave in the forum post.
Well, they basically explained that people of a certain, your average item level wasn't being affected enough by the next raid, but there was this nice little synergy going on of where you were running both, because if you wanted to, because they were right at the same level. I mean, it was kind of like in Wrath of the Lich King, when we had like Nax Ramus, Obsidian Sanctum, and the Eye of Eternity with Malagos. Those were all I think they were all at the same level, weren't they? You were rating much more than I was at the time, Tony. Do you remember?
Let's see. Say it again, just real quick.
Beginning of Wrath of the Lich King with Nax Ramus, Obsidian Sanctum, and Eye of Eternity with Malagos.
Oh, okay. Well, those were just dungeons, weren't they?
No, those were the raids. Nax Ramus?
Actually, that was right at a time when I was pretty much taking a break from raiding.
Okay.
I actually pretty much didn't raid during the beginning of Wrath of the Lich King.
Okay. Because if I remember correctly, and I could be remembering completely wrong, but those were all released right around the same time, and they were, because like you got different pieces of your tier gear from different raids.
Yeah, that's true. I do remember that.
So, and that's why that was one of the things that immediately confused me, that High Maul didn't have any tier pieces, because it was supposed to be on the same tier as Blackrock, but Blackrock has all of your tier gear.
Yeah, and that kind of doubles down on making High Maul more irrelevant, because now not only is all the tier gear in Blackrock, but everything from Blackrock is now just straight up stronger. So it's weird that they try to make High Maul almost useless at this point.
So what you're saying is I need to start complaining to Blizzard that I need to get my abrogator stones from Blackrock.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with it already, right now we're in a position where people are complaining that there isn't enough to do in WoW. And now on top of that, Blizzard is taking content that people were running and basically invalidating a lot of it, making it less useful to run, and giving us essentially less to do.
Yeah.
At least that's how I see it.
No, that's a good way to see it, because it's very accurate.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's what it sounds like anyway.
It just seems so confusing that they would... This just seems like a bad time to do this. Especially when there are people who aren't, raiding everything every week, like myself, who do still need their abrogator stones. And it's like, well, now I feel absolutely zero reason to run High Maul past that I need abrogator stones. Which sucks.
Yeah.
Because I have to do something that is completely useless to me to get something I need that's useful later.
Just not going to make you any better. You're pretty much not getting two birds with one stone. And like, what do the abrogator stones do for you? Unfortunately,
they're part of the legendary quest line. They drop from all the bosses in High Maul, and you have to get 125 of them. They can drop up to 5 at a time. There's 7 bosses in Heimall, and once you get all of them, you get to go to the next step of the legendary quest line. And the next step of the legendary quest line has you collecting a whole bunch of piddly things from Blackrock Foundry, which is the other raid. So, but until I get all of the Abrogator Stones, I can't get the Elemental Runes from Blackrock. So, like, I want to run Blackrock because now that's going to have just straight up better gear, almost without question. We'll just have better gear. But I can't get progression on my legendary quest line by going to Blackrock.
Wow.
Because this was a problem in Pandaria, but they made all of the backdated legendary materials available even through the very last raid.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, stuff that would have been from the very first raid, like, 4 tiers ago, you could still get from the most current raid. So you could at least do things, if you were decided, I'm going to do my legendary quest line, you didn't have to go back and do old raids, because that's... no.
Yeah, because no?
But I guess they just decided that they didn't like that idea anymore.
Yeah. That is kind of interesting.
What do you think, Florian? You think Blizzard's off their rocker?
I honestly can't tell right now. Usually Blizzard makes really solid decisions regarding game design and the like, but I can't figure out what the hell they're thinking this time around.
Maybe there's not been enough interest in gear from BlackRock. That's the only thing that I could possibly think, is that there's not enough, or maybe they don't want, like, maybe there's too many people running Heimall, or maybe what it actually is because of people's outrageous requirements to get into random groups. People want item level higher than what is dropped in the raid.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's silly. What is it? Why?
I don't know. So maybe this just allows them to more easily have a higher item level?
Well, then the required item level is just going to shoot up even higher. That's not going to solve the problem.
No, I don't know. I tried.
Okay,
anyway, I'm stepping away from that one.
We're done.
And then last thing for the news is that we talked about it, like, I think it was like 2 months ago. There's a group of people who are trying to remake Warcraft III in the StarCraft engine, and they are still going, and they have stepped it up because they're having to make all of their own models because they're not wanting to import, I don't know why, but they're not wanting to import any of the models from Warcraft 3. Maybe they're just too outdated and pixelated. That makes sense to me. But so it's a slow project because they're making all of their own stuff over again. Yeah. Would you guys... So, like, there's plenty of call for Warcraft 3. Would you guys actually play it again if it came around?
Well, I'll say this. I haven't ever played it for the first time, so probably.
I feel like a whole bunch of nerds just shivered for some reason, and they're not sure why.
Yeah. I would probably again. It's a good enough game, and that I would play it again if it were updated with like HD, graphics and models. Because it's one of those games where I just look back at it now, and at the time it looked okay, and now I look at the way Warcraft 3 looked when it came out graphically, and I'm just I can't even deal with this right now.
Well, here's the question, okay? Because they haven't disclosed a whole lot of what's going on with this project, and it looks like it won't have the story. It looks like it might end up being just the ability to play multiplayer. What's the word I'm looking for? Does that break this for you? Like, if it was just ability to play skirmishes?
I wouldn't be against it. I mean, it'd still be kind of cool.
Well, yeah, you haven't played the first one, though. The reason I asked Florian is because he's like, yeah, I would totally go back and replay it. Would you go back and replay it just to play the multiplayer if that's all that they end up making?
I'm kind of torn on that. Like, I might play a couple matches, but I really wouldn't get really into it. I just really like to replay the campaign, but I'm a lore nerd, so I really like story modes. So That's just me. I'm sure there are people out there who were like super into Warcraft 3 multiplayer that would just dive into the skirmish mode, but
It was all about
I
just
would
being an
probably
orc and grabbing your blade master and going and wrecking their entire base at level 1.
well, that might be what they would do. Like without the story mode, I probably would not play it.
Okay,
Yeah.
seems fair.
Well, like, to give you an example of something that hits more close to home for me, kind of funny, speaking of home, Homeworld. They just released the remaster of Homeworld.
Okay.
And it's pretty much the same type of thing, except it was done officially. Which, I mean, that doesn't mean anything, but...
Is it good?
Oh, God, is it good!
See, I've never played Homeworld. I have another friend who was freaking out because he didn't have the money to get it, and then he magically found the money to get it. I'm not sure how or where. Not my place to question.
Oh, I know which friend you're talking about. And he told me about his magical ways, but anyway.
And he's super excited, but I've never played it. It's just a space RTS, right?
Yeah, it's a space RTS with a very, very unique story. It's got a good story mode.
How's the gameplay compared to like Command and Conquer?
Okay, well,
just out of curiosity.
Let's just think of it like this. It's first off, the first Homeworld is a 15-year-old game.
Okay.
15 years ago, they managed to make a real-time, space-based RTS that had full, like complete 3D controls. You can tell your ships to go up, down, left, right, forward, backward, full 360-degree movement through space.
That's impressive. Okay.
It's completely real-time. It has multiple different units, and the units work just like any other RTS. You have units that counter other units, units that counter other units, and you collect resources and destroy the enemy.
Do you have a base?
And you have your mothership is your base.
Okay,
and
so it's kind of more along the lines of like Command and Conquer 4 then?
Sort of, except it doesn't suck.
Okay.
Because, I mean, your mothership builds most everything, but you have to research the ability to build those things with it. Like, instead of building buildings, you build research ships and then pay for it to research like a new type of ship that you can build.
Okay. So my question is though, because like people have been asking for Warcraft 3 remake forever, like, you know, since World of Warcraft came out, they wanted to know when the next Warcraft RTS was happening, and Blizzard just is kind of, you know, scratch their head and look the other way. Because, you know, Blizzard, it's like, well, we were going to work on, like, all this other stuff because reasons. Do you think now, I realize you haven't played it, Tony, and me and Florian have probably played it more than we care to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you think that all these people that are asking for it back are just looking through rose-colored sunglasses and are just wanting, like, you know, nostalgic life back? Or, like, so the thing is like, do we want Warcraft 4 in which the story continues and then we have to figure out how to fit that into World of Warcraft canon lore? Or are we just looking for them to just make a new Warcraft RTS for us to drool over?
Well, you know, it's hard to determine on that because I think World of Warcraft kind of replaced the Warcraft in itself because, I mean, it's the same world and it's continued the storyline for a long, you know, I mean, it uses everything from the Warcraft RTS to add lore to the MMO.
Sure.
So I feel like it would be a very difficult thing for them to make a new game with a new story that was canon unless they did something. And you know, like World of Warcraft has already like done so many avenues of Azeroth that it would be really hard for them to even make a campaign for a new Warcraft game.
Well, yeah, sure. Whose story are you following that isn't already covered in Warcraft somewhere?
Yeah, exactly.
What's relevant enough to actually get your attention?
And where's left to go? Like, where is there left to go in Azeroth? Yeah, exactly.
We'll just
there we go.
Blizzard
We'll make
fashion.
a Warcraft space RTS.
We'll just do what Blizzard likes to do and just rip other people off, and we'll just copy Homeworld.
Yeah, and just make it God. I think if they were going to do it, they should make a new IP for it if they really wanted to make a new fantasy RTS. My opinion. Or they could remaster the old games.
That's what they're announcing at BlizzCon this year.
You think so?
I would like just completely crap my pants.
Yeah, but
because I don't really like StarCraft. I'm gonna let you guys know that right now. You can send your hate mail to me. I don't really like StarCraft. I've never really liked StarCraft. It's not my game.
I love StarCraft, and I love the storyline, and I like that I can beat it. But when it comes to playing it with people, I totally suck. I am terrible at that game. That's why I will never the storyline is cool. I like it, and that's good enough, but it's not good enough for me to buy the games for the story because they're too expensive, because I don't get anything out of the multiplayer because I'm terrible at it.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Although now the multiplayer is free.
Sort of. I mean, I can't play Heart of the Swarm units.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't know. I think people don't realize 100% what they're asking for. Mm-hmm. Not just like what they'll get, but the commitment from Blizzard, because it'll take so much time and money, and I don't actually think it'll make as much money as people believe it will. There are some things that I think would make way more money than anyone thinks it will. Like if Square Enix ever remakes Final Fantasy VII, I think that game will just sell more copies than you could possibly imagine, because the number of fanboys for that game, including myself, is way too large to count.
Unfortunately, I don't feel like they're going to, like with the latest announcement for Final Fantasy VII, I don't feel like they're going to remake it.
I would like to at least see what they've done with a whole bunch of the other Final Fantasy games and just give it a little retexture. They even did it with Final Fantasy VIII. It just got an HD texture wrap across the entire thing.
Well, I mean, they already announced that, and it was very disappointing.
For Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah.
I don't remember this.
They announced that at the last Tokyo Game Show, and it was very disappointing to the entire... Because all it is they're releasing it in 1080p for PS4 and... Okay,
that's different if they're just re-releasing it. Like, Final Fantasy VIII actually got retextured. Like, everything has new textures on it.
Like, all this is they're making it 1080p, so it's high definition, and that's it.
High definition of their old blocky pixels?
Pretty much.
Okay, geniuses. Alright, let's get into a closer look. Welcome to A Closer Look, everybody. Every week on A Closer Look, we'll talk about something that maybe isn't necessarily newsworthy, very rarely is newsworthy, and is just something that we think could use a little bit more attention in the world. And right now we're going to be taking a look at guilds, and not necessarily the guild system, but leading them. There's not a whole lot of intricacies when it comes to just what a guild is. I mean, it just brings a whole bunch of people together, and, you'll have your own little special chat, and generally you have a raid inside and stuff like that. But the guild system itself is not exactly that intricate. Creating one and leading one, though, is a life skill you can apply to a whole bunch of other things, because good lord. So I ran a guild and a raid, a heroic progression raid at the beginning of Cataclysm. We raided heroic, Bastion of Twilight and Throne of Four Winds. Nah, I don't think we ever actually stepped into Blackrock Depths. No, what is it? Blackwing Caverns. Or Blackwing Descent. There we go.
There we go.
And then I was an officer in a very casual raiding guild that was really, really social. Both at the end of Wrath and all through Miss Pandaria. And now I'm just kind of like guildless, but that's a different story. What about you, Florian? What is your guild leading experience of any sort?
Pretty much 100% of my experience has been in roleplay guilds. I've functioned as an officer before, both in charge of roleplay and in charge of just general guild stuff. And I also co-ran my own role-playing guild for a while during, I want to say during Late Wrath, early Cataclysm.
Okay. And Tony, how about you?
I've never led a guild per se, but I have led a raid group.
Okay.
There was a time... Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I was going to say there's plenty of things that correlate between the two. And especially guild leaders are very, very often also the raid leader.
Yeah.
So, that's still applicable. But when was this?
True. It was back in Wrath. It was around the time of the that big tournament thing right before Ice Crown Citadel launched.
Trial of the Grand Crusader?
Yeah, that thing.
The big arena that had no trash and just boss after boss.
Yep, which I actually thought was a nice change of pace for a raid. It was fun, and sometimes trash is annoying. But anyway, I ended up with this guild because I had gotten a new job, and my hours were in the evening all the time.
Okay.
So I was looking for a raid that was in the morning. Because I loved Warcraft that much, I wanted to wake up, and the first thing I'd do is raid. I was so misguided.
Oh, I was like, you don't sound that excited about it now.
Oh, no. That's a terrible idea. But anyway, we started, I joined this guild, transferred servers, showed them that I could do stuff, and we eventually just started raiding. Well, I was always kind of a second DPS pick because they were doing like 10-mans and stuff, and for a while there, I wasn't always getting to go every time they raided, so that was kind of annoying.
I don't even know what a 10-man raid looks like anymore.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, because of this whole flexible raiding thing, all of the raids you get into are like 17 to 30 people.
Wow.
But anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, I did this raid for a while, and we started to get more people because we started to make progression and people started to get interested. So I split off and started running my own raid group, and I was pretty impressed with it. Unfortunately, I had a very bad experience with that because I did it for a while, and my secondary raid group started to make progression faster than the main raid group.
Oh.
And the raid leader one day was like missing a person, and he pretty much told me that I had to come to his raid and help him because it was just a reset, and they'd like saved their progress, and my group hadn't started yet. And
Okay.
he told me that I had to come to his group or he would like kick me out of the guild. I was like, what?
Wow.
So I ended up going because they wanted help, and I was like, well, I don't know if I should, but okay, if you're going to be like that. And I went, and then when my raid wanted to go, I was like, well, unfortunately, so-and-so forced me to go with them, and I'm saved now, and I can't lead your group. And my group got very upset, and I had a couple people just flat out quit, and then I pretty much quit the guild and gave them my reason for quitting, and that was it on that one.
Seems fair.
Yeah.
So, a couple quick notes. If you want to create a guild of your own, it's probably one of the simplest and most antiquated things in the game. You go to the guild people, which you can ask for in any major town. You buy a charter from them for essentially what is the equivalent of your pocket lint. You are then going to ask people around you to sign your charter, which you will probably end up having to pay them for. Once you get 5 signatures, you can go turn in that charter, and congrats, you have a guild.
Yay!
Oh, Lord.
Perfect.
Anyway. And then you can spend way too much money upgrading your guild bank and stuff like that. So then we actually go into the idea of what you actually leading the guild. Now, if it's just like, there's some guilds that you've probably been in that, it has like 900 people in them, and no one actually really talks to anybody or anything like that. I don't even know what to classify those guilds as anymore. I'm actually in one right now. We have like 940 members, 56 members online, and there has not been a word in guild chat for the last... Well, I've been online for 2 hours and there hasn't been a word in guild chat, so...
Wow.
Yeah, that's a very common thing nowadays, is for that type of guild to exist. Generally, you have raiding guilds, casual guilds, RP guilds, and what I believe these are classified as social guilds, in which you're not really like you're supposed to be like a chat room for yourself with a whole bunch of other people, but nobody actually chats in here. So when you create a guild, you should probably think about what you want it to be aimed at, and then we go into leading it, which is a lot more complicated than people think. If you're leading what I just described, a social guild, then you don't really have to do anything, because there's nothing to do. Quick thing to note, if you are going to be a guild leader and you want to do something with your guild, you need to realize that there's a time commitment with this. Absent guild leaders are pretty much the worst guild leaders. You could be a crappy guild leader, but I would rather you be there and be crappy than just not be around at all.
Yeah.
So, then there's a whole bunch of different things you can tweak, like with your guild bank, with your roster, you can give people ranks, all this kind of fun little jibbity-joop. What are some... Well, Tony already said one of the things he ran into with a problem with a guild leader. What's one of your biggest pet peeves of a guild leader, Florian?
The thing that I hated the most and that I had the most issues with was, and this is probably directly the result of running a role-playing guild, was guild drama. When you would have people whose personalities would just rub each other entirely the wrong way. And it's really one of the most challenging things to resolve, especially when it happens between two of your longtime members or two of your officers. It becomes a very tricky situation, and I don't think there's ever any right decision to make or any right answers in that case, which makes it really hard for a guild leader to deal with.
And all the more complicated. Yeah, I know this problem from running... Tony, you might even know the same feeling of running a progression raid. It's not a casual raid, you're not just seeing what you can do, just playing the game with some friends. You're legitimately trying to do things. You might not be going for world first, but you're legitimately trying to, it's like, I want to kill the last boss before this raid is over, and I want to do it on the highest difficulty. Do I need to do it first? No, I just want to do it. But in order to do that, you actually really have to commit yourself to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you run into the situations of, well, it's less of an issue now, but it used to be a big problem. It's like, I can only take 10 people. And I have 14 people who are already qualified and up on their, attendance or whatever your rules are to go. How do I decide who goes? And then, once you do decide, now you have these people who are essentially benched. And then what happens if this dude starts underperforming? He's not able to carry his weight anymore. You generally get very close to your fellow raiders or, your fellow RPers or whatever. These people, even if it's not a, even if you didn't go to high school with them, they might even be closer friends than the people you did go to high school with. And now you have to tell this guy, you're booted. Sorry, it's like, how, this is one of the complications, because it's like, this is technically your friend, and you have to tell him, sorry, bro, you suck. Did you run into, so besides the drama, did you run into, because I've never been in an RP guild, unfortunately. I'm sure it is way too much fun, and I would probably play way more Warcraft than I already do. did you run into anything like? Is there like specific groups in RP guilds or anything like that that runs into that problem of like someone who is just a crappy RPer?
Well, that kind of goes to the point you made about being able to keep up in raids. You know, every RP guild needs to have a minimum standard for what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And when people can't meet the minimum standards of role playing, you know, they get booted out. You know, I've had people who would join the guild, and you know, if they can't, for example, one of the biggest problems I would run into, for some reason, staggeringly common among wannabe role players, was that they just couldn't spell. They would write a lot of stuff in chat speak, or just in generally not spell correctly. Or
Okay.
when their character would speak, they would use a lot of well, again, online slang and the like, which doesn't make
Shorthand.
sense in character. Yeah. So, you know, people can't meet those standards. You just have to tell them, you know, go find another roleplay guild, because we're not going to do this.
I like to read things like it was out of a book, because you saying the word 2 as the number 2 just kind of breaks my immersion.
Yeah, that just didn't work. Like, if I had people doing that, I would just tell them either learn to English properly, or you're going to be gone from this guild tomorrow. And
Wow.
that's just how it was.
Yeah,
Because in order,
Tony's never been in a role-playing guild. He doesn't realize how serious these people get.
well, I mean, the thing is,
no.
'cause-
What I don't mean that in a bad thing. I mean, wow, I can't believe people don't understand that you have to talk like a real. Oh God. Because I've done roleplay in my time, and it pisses me off to no end when people don't roleplay. If you're role playing and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I was playing Call of Duty. What are you doing now?" Oh God. But yeah, I get you.
Yeah, it's really important in a roleplay guild to keep to keep those kinds of people out, because like roleplay is all about immersion, 100%, and stuff like that just completely wrecks immersion. So they just have to go.
Yeah.
So,
No, you're retarded. Get
my
out.
next question is, what is the favorite thing that you can remember a guild leader doing? I realize I didn't like prep you guys at all for this, but
Oh, actually, you know what? It's actually kind of funny. That same guild leader that I had that huge problem with was also a guild leader that I respected before he did that. It was actually interesting. There was a time when we were doing we were doing the first bosses of Ice Crown. And if you specifically remember the Death Knight, who would summon the slimes right next to him, and they would slowly go towards whoever got aggro on them, but they were untankable. So you had to DPS them down from afar with ranged.
are you talking about Professor Putricide?
No.
You're talking about
He was the Blood Death
Starfang.
Knight. Yeah, he was guarding the door.
Yeah, okay, I remember who you're talking about. It's been so long since I've done that fight. I kill him so quick when I go back now to do old content that he just dies.
You don't know what he does.
The slimes don't get summoned in time, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that fight was notorious for melee DPS had to make sure not to use any AoE skills, because when those slimes spawned, if you AoE'd them and they attacked you, you would die.
Okay.
And he was a DPS check, because if you didn't kill him fast enough, he would just eventually just kill everybody, like most bosses are nowadays. I remember we were having a big problem with some of our melee DPS. They could not get it through their heads not to use AoE abilities when he was about to summon it. And I've had this, like, I don't understand why a lot of people just can't get simple mechanics like this. I've had it in any guild that I've ever been in. And what I really enjoyed was after one of the raids we did, our guild leader took all the melee DPS into Skype chat and was talking to them about the raid, and we barely beat that boss, and it was not doing good. And he had a damage meter, and he could tell who did damage to the slimes.
Sure.
So he knew who screwed up. And when talking to everybody, I thought it was really nice that he pointed out, like, not only the people who made the faults, but he pointed out who did it correctly.
Sure.
Which was like me and a couple other guys didn't hit the slimes a single time. And I think that's a really good thing to do, to point out when guild members do things right. Because it, like, a lot of times, when you are in a guild, you can have a guild leader who gets very frustrated, and I've been in so many guilds where there's cussing and just anger because we can't get a boss down. Like, God, you guys suck so much ass, you know, that kind of crap. And even if you're not the one causing the problem, constant negativity like that will start to bring the morale of an entire raid down so fast.
Well, and that's even applicable in, like, the workplace. Like,
yeah,
it brings people down so much if you're like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Or, you know, like, if you're on a sports team, or, you know, you're just anything at all. If you just constantly tell people whenever they suck and never give them props ever, it is horrible. But even if it's like once a month, it's like, yo, man, good work on that, you know, report this week or whatever. It's like, yeah, I rock, you know, it's like, woo!
Yeah. It actually does help to, you know, tell people that they're doing something right, which I think that's one of the best things a guild leader can do, is to actually just congratulate his guild members on things well done.
One of the best things that I have ever seen a guild leader do, and it made me super happy, is that we were raiding, and I don't remember what we were specifically raiding anymore. And we were in the middle of the fight, and one of the raiders goes, "My baby's crying." He goes, "Wipe it." And just immediately, he was the tank and just stopped tanking it and died and let everyone die. And he goes, "All right, now we're just going to hang out while Jacob goes and takes care of his kid. So I hope none of you are upset about that. If you do, you can get the fuck out."
That's pretty cool.
He was like, "I'm not going to play around with," you know, he's like, I recognize that he's a father, and the kid should always be more important than this game, and I understand that we are trying to get places with this, so understand that if it ever comes to the point that he's like, I don't care if the boss is at 5%, if he has to go take care of his kid, I'm gonna wipe the raid. And I'm like, it just made me happy that he was a respectful enough person to everybody. That's a very human thing to do when there's so many inhuman emotions that get thrown around in video games. I mean, you know, in video games, because people are able to hide behind, you know, their computer screen and stuff like that, so many times they get treated like complete crap. And it's, even if it was, you know, we wiped on that boss, which we weren't at 5%. It was like halfway through. It was just still very refreshing and nice to see that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. That's pretty awesome.
What about you, Florian? Favorite guild leader memory? Whether it was you as a guild leader or something that a different guild leader did.
You know, honestly, I can't think of anything really outstanding. I've been
Everything
in guilds
just always sucks.
Like I've been in guilds that had a really good, very competent leadership, but like, you know, just like stories like what you guys just told, I don't think I've ever had anything like that. At least not that I can remember off the top of my head.
I'm sorry.
So I think you guys have just had really exceptional guild leaders.
It just, and like that instance in particular was just so powerful to me, just because it was like, because he was acting like what a normal human being would. It was nice.
So rare these days on the internet. Especially
like in raids, you know, you'll have friends and stuff like that, but really you're all there just to kill the bosses. Like, very, very rarely are people even people or friends outside of their raid group. Outside of some of the more tightly knit ones, obviously. But I know a lot of raid groups that... I've only had one raid group where I knew people by their actual name. And all of the others, it's just like, you know, it's like, oh, this, you know, he left because of reason. And it's like, there is no loss there. You know, you're like, oh man, that guy was cool, whatever. Who are we replacing him with? You know, that's the extent of that conversation.
Yeah.
couple other quick tips for guilds, especially if you're a guild leader. As you might have guessed by what we've talked about, you are like the grand babysitter. You are, like, understand that even if these people are technically adults, they are going to act like children. And I'm not saying that you as a listener does. There's just tons and tons of people on this game that do. And they will be like 28, 36 years old and, yelling like you just took their candy and they're, 2 months old. And so you will, if it's a guild with purpose, you will most often have to be judge, jury, and executioner way more than you might suspect. Do you guys have anything else that you would like to add onto guilds? Good tips? Or there's lots of good add-ons. I don't personally remember using any specifically, but there's some that allow you to really watch a whole bunch of different things when it comes to add-ons.
Yeah.
My best advice for anyone who wants to be a guild leader, wants to lead a guild, is to remember that leadership is an actual skill. People just aren't magically leaders or not leaders. It is a skill that you can not only learn, but improve through study and practice. So just be aware that you're not... When you're leading a guild, be aware that you can always be a better leader. You can always find resources to help you improve your leadership skills. Like one of the things I did that was the best for me, not only as guild leader, just leadership in general, was reading historically important books on how to lead under various types of circumstances. For example, Sun Tzu's The Art of War, which, aside from the teaching you how to win medieval Chinese battles, actually teaches you a lot about how to properly lead people and get them to do what you need them to do when you need them to do it. So I would advise actually building your leadership skills, because not only will that make you a better guild leader, but being a guild leader gives you plenty of practice being a leader, which in turn pays dividends in, like, the workplace and the real world and all that when you're in a position where you need to take a leadership position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's some good advice. I would definitely agree with that.
All right. But really, though, understand that no matter what, people are going to get upset. It's gonna happen. Some people get very entitled. Some people, especially in like raids, it's going to be hard because someone's going to, be like an officer in the guild, and they're going to get a big ego and a big head, and they're going to start being a jackweed, and you have to fix it. And it sucks but that's just part of the responsibility, and it takes a lot of tact, it takes a lot of patience, and a lot of practice. It is really a big part of it, is a lot of practice.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys, before we move on?
I think that's pretty good coverage, really.
All right.
Yeah, it's fairly comprehensive.
I am going to play this. That was way creepier than I expected it to be.
Yeah, I'm scared.
So, we don't have any mail. You can send us an email to thecastbar@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at castbarpodcast. Call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. You can also leave us a comment if you'd like to ask a question on any of our YouTube videos. You just, even if you're watching an old one and you think of a question because you're watching the old one, leave it on that video and I will find it. And then we can proceed from there on actually being able to have mail and hopefully actually have a mailbag section. So let's go ahead and move into the review, guys.
Review.
It's time for the review. Welcome to the review section, everybody. Every week we'll review something, whether it is a 5-man dungeon, like it is this week, a raid, a quest line, a class, a spec, a zone, a city. We've already actually done quite a bit of a variety, just really testing our ability and getting our feet wet with all the different things that are available in the game that you actually can review, and it's surprising just how many things you can actually squeeze a conversation out of. And then, go from there and tell everyone that it sucks. I'm in a very happy-go-lucky, positive mood today, aren't I? And this week we're going to do the 5-man dungeon Shadowfang Keep. Shadowfang Keep, once the castle and home of Baron Silverlane, fell prey to the mad Archangel Arugul and his pet Worgen. After Arugul himself was defeated by agents of the Horde, the keep was abandoned, temporarily. Lord Godfrey, a traitor to both Gilneans and Forsaken, now resides there accompanied by his lackeys and the spirits of the dead. So, Shadowfang Keep is located... What is this zone called? It is located in the... Not the Hillsbred... The Silverpine Forest. And I believe it is roughly level, 22-ish for content level. It's 5 people. It's got, 5 bosses, I think, total? And we break the review section into 3 parts: ambience, gameplay, and lore. Ambience is everything you see, everything you hear, feelings. Some places, even in a video game, can be quite creepy. And so that's what we're bringing to the table now. Gameplay is obviously loot, mechanics, numbers, damage, abilities, everything that you're actually doing. And then lore is the story that's actually inside of it. For ambience, Florian, you want to take the first steps?
Sure, I'll start out. As you've already stated, Shadowfang Keep is one of the more creepy dungeons, specifically among low-level dungeons. It's got a very interesting sort of layout that I don't see very often in dungeons, in that it almost feels like it's made up of different phases. Like when you first come out, when you first enter the dungeon, you're in sort of a stables area with a bunch of little stalls and there's hay around and stuff. And then you end up in a castle sort of indoor type area. Then you've got a couple outdoor areas, and then the final indoor area, which is a large arena where you fight Lord Godfrey. A lot of dungeons, it's the same throughout. You get the same kind of decor, the same kind of enemies, the same kind of everything. But in Shadowfang Keep, it really changes as you go through the dungeon, which I think is a really nice choice. And I think that's one of the reasons that Shadowfang Keep has long been a favorite dungeon of many players. So it's always been popular, even in its original incarnation before the rework that it had. In its current form, it seems to look a little nicer than it originally did. I don't know if they actually updated the textures.
Because the change happened in Cataclysm, right?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was Cataclysm. Was it Cataclysm?
I believe so. Yes, it would have to have been. Because, we'll go into that in the lore. There's okay. Lore-related reasons of why all of this is the way it is.
Yeah. But in any case, I don't know if the textures have actually been updated, but they do look sharper than most vanilla textures. So I think they've made some improvement to it. But if it wasn't Cataclysm, like you said, it's obvious it's a little dated. It doesn't look as good as the Draenor stuff or even the Pandaria stuff.
Well, I mean, technically, Cataclysm's 5 years old at this point.
Yeah, that's still hard for me to grasp.
Right?
It still feels like we were playing Wrath last week. But yeah, the layout, on the other hand, has remained exactly identical. There were no changes made from the original. It was great because it was a really nice layout. There are a good variety of different types of enemies, but there are no really unique models, I don't think. I think it's that only 2 of the bosses have unique models, and those are Baron Ashbury
and Lord Godfrey.
And then Lord Godfrey.
Lord Walden
Everything
does
else...
as well. What is he? The alchemist dude? Because they all share the same model, but it was at the time a new model. Okay, yeah, the three of them have that model, which I don't think I've seen anywhere outside of this dungeon. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but I can never tell. I mean, it started. It it was started to be used at the same time that Cataclysm came out. I mean, it was a model that came out with Cataclysm. So I mean, you see it like in a couple of the quests and stuff that especially involve like Lord Godfrey and stuff. But now I don't know if it's been reused since then.
I don't think I've seen it.
I think it was mostly just in the Forsaken starting area.
That is quite possible. That would make sense considering this is like the second zone for Forsaken.
Yeah. Well, because they introduced Lord Godfrey when in the new Forsaken starting quest because he kills Sylvanas.
Right.
So I think that's when they introduced that model.
I don't know if Wowhead shows... No, they don't show shared models of units, unfortunately. And essentially, I don't know if it's necessarily... It's not necessarily a new model. The only reason that it feels that way is because it's using a very unique armor set. It's using a black version of the crafted Ember Silk gear from Cataclysm, which was the really interesting looking, had the big wide brim hat, but the mask came all the way up to the eyes on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really think I've seen that one used much anywhere else. Well, in any case, it looked unique to me, and I appreciated that at least one mob in here has a somewhat unique looking model.
Sure, I mean, and even if it is just putting a different type of armor on it, it still makes them feel different than, just a different color dragon.
Yeah,
it does help a little bit.
On the ambience, though, unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way to get my speakers to actually play. Because I have to use a little interface to play, like, the bumpers and stuff for you guys. But my speaker sounds themselves, I haven't quite figured out how to get them to play correctly just through Skype. I know there's a way to do it. I can't get it to work, though. But with the recording thing, it will record the music that goes through my speakers properly. So, like, right now, I'm in Shadowfang Keep right now, playing letting the music loop for the review. The music itself is for one, it changes. You were talking about the different phases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
After you exit the stables where Baron Ashbury is, it actually changes from right there. Because before, when you're in the stables, it kind of had this, like, you're storming the keep music. I mean, there's, like, some war drums and stuff like that. And then after you go out into, like, the courtyard, it turned into this, like, kind of more somber, baritone sounding. There wasn't a whole lot of energy to it. And I actually just walked into the upper area after you defeat Baron Silverlane, and it has changed again to kind of a more like up there where the gargoyles and stuff are. It's changed to a more spooky feeling ghost type. I can hear some soft violins, so it's kind of neat that this dungeon actually, its music would transition as shift the farther you went through it. And I'm going to see if it continues to do that as we go through this review. But the way that everything the shift changes, like you were talking about, it just makes it feel, because even though the dungeon is really linear, it doesn't feel as such because you're getting so many different views presented to you. I will say that with the new lighting effects that Blizzard just came out, this dungeon actually is a lot prettier because it's pretty dark in here, and the torches with this new bloom lighting makes this look amazing.
Oh yeah, I will second that. It looks a lot better now with the improved lighting.
And I was surprised how much of a difference that lighting actually did make, not just in here, but in general. Primarily just the glow and the bloom lighting. Some of the aliasing and stuff like that, I do not care about. It did not make enough of a difference. If it has, 3 less jagged little lines on it, then whatever. It's not that big of a difference. It still looks like a jagged line. This lighting, though, has made a humongous difference to the game, and it's even shown very well here in Shadowfang Keep. So, Florian, do you have an ambience grade?
For ambience, I'm going to give it a B+. It's got real solid ambience. It has the different sort of phases that break things up visually and make the dungeon feel like several different dungeons, I guess,
Okay.
packed into one. Only problem is, once again, some of the textures look a little dated, and I would not complain about having a bit of an update to those.
Tony, what would your ambience grade be?
Let's see. I played that dungeon a long time ago, of course, but I did like it a lot. I think it had really good ambience from start to finish, and it changed a lot, which I'd probably be around in the same area, though. Probably 8.5, like he was saying.
And I'm going to give it a solid B as well. The dungeon, even though it is as old as it is, and even I don't believe it actually got new textures when it got the remake in Cataclysm, because nothing in there has actually changed. It's held up really well, and I've mentioned this before, that stone textures, which is what this entire keep is made out of, live a very long time. Stone's very simple compared to things like trees or grass or anything like that, so these older textures have held up very, very well to the modern eye, and I'm going to give it a solid B as well. It is old, unfortunately, and I always have this problem of, I feel like Blizzard tries too hard to put stuff in there. Like, the dungeon itself, the ambience feels messy because there's so much stuff just laying around. And it just seems odd. I don't believe actual, like, keeps, even if they, have fallen, are like that. And also, there's so many quests, like, honestly, like, right over here, I'm looking at a stack of silver bars. These are just sitting out on the side of the table? Like, what were you doing with these? So solid B for me. Looks like a B plus overall for ambience. And we'll get into gameplay. I'll go ahead and take the first steps in gameplay. Now, the Cataclysm dungeons will always hold like a very special place in my heart. And that's because when they first came out, the heroic modes for them were ridiculous. And I loved it. I know so many people hated the heroic dungeons. And I loved them. I thought they were incredible. And I truly do miss the difficulty that heroic dungeons posed. The gameplay in this dungeon was also incredibly good. I mean, because Baron Ashbury, at the very beginning, he had an ability that would put you all down to 1 life, and you were like, what do we do? We're all dead! You had a very small window to actually bring yourself back, because otherwise you would just die. I mean, he put you down to 1, and you have about, 2 seconds to do anything before he uses another ability, and, if you're at 1, I mean, he breathes on you and you die.
Yeah.
Baron Silverlane, the next boss, he was really a pushover. And then you get to Lord Walden, who's like this alchemist dude, before the last boss. He was crazy because he uses all of these cool AoE magics and stuff like that, and they did so much damage. And he would use different, on heroic mode, obviously, he would use different alchemy things, and like, there was like red and green, and you couldn't be close to these ones, and you would just die. And I actually really appreciate just dying, by the way. I don't know why, but they were good. I mean, I really enjoy bosses that feel powerful. This is a boss. It's taking 5 of us to take it down. Why does his big, flaming thing not hurt me? And this is just a little personal little complaint about dungeons, but all of these abilities, even though they were really strong, none of them felt broken. Like, there's some abilities that you're just like, man, that is super unfair. All of these abilities feel like it was just like a test of skill. Don't be close to these. When he does the ice shards, make sure you're watching your feet so, you don't get ice shards dropped on your head, because then you're gonna die. The last boss, he had, I think it's literally called bullet time.
Yeah.
And, he just shoots 1,000,000 friggin' bullets, and that thing will kill you. And it's like, these things, I feel like the people that wanted to strive to get better at raiding and stuff like that, they were having to essentially beat their face against things. Like, this dungeon was a really great dungeon at the time. One of my favorite to run, because it didn't have anything that was, like I said, didn't have anything that was unfair. It was just stuff that was very strong. And I feel like if we had things like this, we'd have so many better raiders, because it wasn't just a you win or lose. It was a you can actually learn easily how to deal with this, which I feel is such a good introduction to raiding. It's like, this will actually teach you that you need to, the apprehension skills of paying attention. And this dungeon was one of the perfect examples of that, because I will admit, some of the other heroic dungeons in Cataclysm had abilities that were like, that is just straight up not fair. You are cheating, sir. This was not one of them. What were your guys' thoughts on the gameplay in this dungeon?
Well, thanks for saying everything I was going to say.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But honestly, yeah, you covered pretty much all of it. Because I was just going to say, like, the mechanics in these dungeons were really nice. And they did really teach people, like, how to raid later on. Just gave you a lot of good experiences, and they were frustrating sometimes, but it was worth it.
And what about you, Florian? Where are you at on the gameplay for it?
I would say that everything you said definitely applies to the bosses in this dungeon. They've got a lot of really good mechanics. I remember a lot of people dying because they just stood in gold Lord Godfrey's pistol barrage. That was super fun to try to heal people through back in the day.
I did try.
I tried just as a personal challenge. I think I did it like once, but aside from that, it's not really a thing you can do. But in the case of the bosses, I would say yes. The trash, on the other hand, and I always talk about the trash because it's pretty much like, it's more than half of the actual combat you do during the dungeon.
That's true.
And the trash here just isn't worthwhile, though. It doesn't do much interesting. It doesn't have any interesting abilities. The main thing is that there are a few pulls where if the tank screws them up, you can end up pulling more stuff than you would like, and that could potentially cause a wipe. I remember specifically the room that, oh man, what's the guy's name? Baron...
Ashbury?
No, not that guy. The big dining hall.
Baron Silverlane?
That guy.
Or the night guy right after him?
No, not the night guy.
The dude at the dinner table, or the
dude at the dinner table.
Okay. Yeah, Baron Silverlane.
Yeah, I remember that room is very possible for the tank to screw you over by pulling too much. It's happened to me several times.
You only want to pull half the table at a time.
Yeah, you need to kind of take it easy in that spot. But aside from a couple of pulls where it might be, I don't know how difficult it would be for the tank because I've never tanked this place. All I know is I've seen them screw it up. But aside from that, like, the trash is really boring. It's really uninteresting. It's just kind of empty padding between bosses.
Just
and while that is
down.
While padding between bosses is literally the function of trash, I'd like it if it were at least a little bit more interesting. It did something interesting, had a couple mechanics maybe, instead of just being basically tank and spank trash.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't really do anything. The spellcasters after that boss that are in like the upstairs stables, there was some complications that could arise with them because they had like some AoE stuff, but because they did the AoE poison. But even then, it still wasn't a whole lot. Just pay attention. And I remember, what is it? Words and Things. The stables before Baron Ashbury, because the ghouls and stuff run around all the time, you could be like, alright, Hunter, go pull that ghoul for us. And the ghoul, like, dive into a room and the arrow goes off and it goes flying around the corner because it didn't technically lose line of sight because magic. And then it's like, I was already halfway in the room, now all my friends saw you shoot me, and...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you all die, and then you know, because, everything in Heroic Cataclysm at the beginning was pretty darn difficult. Even if the trash wasn't interesting, it could still kill you. It was quite painful.
Mm-hmm.
I just words are escaping me in all ways because I actually really like this dungeon a lot. Even the lore, which we're about to get into, I have some very large complaints, but I still enjoy it a lot. So, gameplay grade, Tony.
Let's see. I'd probably give it an A-.
A minus? And unfortunately, this doesn't equate to now, because you won't get to... A lot of the things that we do when we review, the gameplay just doesn't hold up anymore because it's not current. But, so you're going with an A minus for what it was?
Yeah.
Compared to when you face roll it now? Of course, you can still do this at level 85, and it'll still be pretty difficult, but they did nerf it because of complaints. So you can't do the original in its original state anymore. It's been nerfed a little bit across the board. What about you, Florian? Where are you at on gameplay?
I'm gonna give it a B+. Bosses are great. Trash is trash. And
I see what you did there.
it's once again the same thing where it's too easy now, even at level. Because I had a healer that I was recently leveling through his 20s, and like I said earlier, I used to take it as a challenge to try to heal people through that pistol barrage. You know, now people can stand in the pistol barrage for the entire pistol barrage, and I won't heal them, and they still won't die.
Can I put in a petition to change it from pistol barrage to bullet time?
It wouldn't be the worst name.
I want it to be called Bullet Time. Or can we just have a new boss who has that same type of ability and call it Bullet Time? Why don't we have a boss in the game that is modeled after bullet hell style video games? Or is that what Twins Ogron is supposed to be with all their fire? That's pretty close to bullet hell games, I guess.
I think that's taking it a little easier than bullet hell games would.
I want a bullet hell style boss. Come on. All right. Anyway, so B+ from Florian. It's gonna get a solid A from me. It would be significantly less if I judged it based on just purely the thing, because you can't experience it really now. It's very difficult to get there because if I highly recommend, if you can, taking a level 85, newly 85, and taking other level 85s and going and doing this on heroic. It's quite fun, because you don't have the problem with like old raids that the power level has changed. It has a little bit, but you can still really get a good experience from this. It's really strong. I highly advise just going and giving this a chance when you have the time, and if you have a tune of the appropriate level. Obviously, at level 100, you're just going to walk in and just laugh, and things will fall over. So let's take a step into lore. And lore is the story, and there is a surprising amount of story in this. And my biggest complaint is that a large number of the story is not in the dungeon and is not reflected very well in the dungeon. Tony mentioned earlier that Lord Godfrey kills Sylvanas. Now, she comes back to life because of her Valkyrie and all that. But in the Undead starting zone, well, not the starting zone, through the starting quests, Lord Godfrey betrays the Forsaken and shoots Lady Sylvanas in the back, literally in the back, kills her, and then scurries away to come here to do all of his evil doings here. He was originally a Gilnean, and he got killed and then turned undead, and he did a whole bunch of bad things to the Gilneans and the Worgen, and that's why when you're in here, you'll see Worgen in here hunting him down, trying to kill him. Florian, would you like to take a couple more words for us?
There's not really much more to say than that. The current lore is pretty straightforward.
It's just, unfortunately, not very direct. Now,
yeah,
I don't remember it before Cataclysm anymore. The undead guys between all of... not undead, that's not a good term. The ghost guys, so like Baron Silverlane at the dinner table, and the dude after him, what's his name, the commander guy,
Commander Springvale.
Yeah, Commander Springvale. That sounds right. Were they in the dungeon, or did they have any significance before the rework?
There were ghost guys. I remember that specifically. I don't know if their names were the same or if they were the same guys at all.
Here we go.
I'm not really sure what's going on with them.
Baron Silverlane was the owner of the Shadowfang Keep back when he was alive. After his death, the castle fell into the hands of Arugel, and then that guy I said, and then the Gilnean Lord Godfrey. Silverlane's ghost still haunts the halls of the keep and is now its second boss. And then Commander Springvale was once commander of Baron Silverlane's personal guard. Springvale's ghost now haunts the morbid keep of Shadowfang Keep. He's the instance's third boss, ordering the spirits of the dead into military formations as he did in life. So they're just restless spirits, I guess. They were just people who lived here before. I just don't remember if they were bosses in vanilla through Wrath.
There was I don't know if it was Commander Springvale or another guy, but there was a human ghost boss in that same room where Commander Springvale is.
Okay.
I just can't remember if his name was the same.
I think the thing about the lore that bothers me the most is that, this Baron dude kills Sylvanas, which seems like a very crazy thing to be able to do.
Well, he used a special gun, didn't he?
Well, regardless, you know how hard it is to go kill a faction leader, even with a raid group.
Sure, yeah.
It takes a little bit of time. This guy just goes, "Oh, I killed her," and then all he becomes is a boss of a single dungeon, and you kill him, and he's gone. And I just felt like that was a very piss-poor way to get rid of him. I just feel like he should have been more important for what he did, pretty much.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've complained about, is that there is no undead presence here. For him killing Sylvanas, and then her coming back to life, and then the only people really inside, there is no mention even that he killed Sylvanas. So, the Horde, when they come in here, the Alliance, when they come in here, probably don't know that he killed Sylvanas. And if you weren't an undead, and you're some other member of the Horde, you most likely didn't do that quest line.
Yeah.
So, if you're not an undead, then you have absolutely zero knowledge of why you'd want to go in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was in that exact situation. I don't have any undead characters, so I really had no idea who Lord Godfrey is or why we would want to kill him until I Googled it for this exact review. So they don't really do a good job presenting that lore. Or maybe they do, but just for undead players, which is kind of a strange thing to do for a dungeon that everyone is going to be running, undead or otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Presumably, at least, if you do dungeons, you will be running this. And it really does just seem odd that they just... Maybe it would be too hard to figure out how to fit both types of factions in here, since, the only people you interact with is the Gilneans, but I'm just surprised that Sylvanas didn't hunt him down.
Yeah, oh, he killed me, oh well.
Yeah, right?
It kind of leads to the other logical question of why would Alliance players want to come here? This guy tried to kill a Horde faction leader. Isn't that good for them?
Right? Shouldn't we be giving him a high five?
Kill him? Let him stay there and continue causing division in the Forsaken ranks. Why would the Alliance want to kill him at all? I don't understand.
Because he betrayed the Gilneans. He betrayed the Gilneans to become a Forsaken and help the Forsaken army in Gilnea.
In Gilnea.
My pronunciation for what I thought the Gilnean nation was called is Gilneas, not Gilnea, but close enough, whatever. So he is kind of the reason that a lot of their homes and stuff got blown up by the Forsaken, because he's a dirty little expletive. Obviously, because, he betrayed... Talk about making enemies. I'm going to betray Gilneans and the Alliance to become a Forsaken, and then I'm going to betray the Forsaken by killing Sylvanas and resting inside this crumbly old keep. Yeah. I am amazing.
You just have to wonder what the guy's long-term game plan was.
Die?
What What did he think he was going to accomplish besides pissing everyone off?
Die. That's what he accomplished.
Well, yeah, that's what he accomplished, but was that what he was trying to accomplish? That's my real question.
I think it might just... Obviously, we can't, like, go ask him. I think it might have just been, like, digging yourself into a rabbit hole, and you can't dig out, so you just dig yourself deeper, and then you have gone so far that you can't go back, so you just have to try to keep going forward even though you know you're going to lose.
Well, if you're going to do that, at the very least, it's probably not a good idea to make your home very, very close to the capital city of the people whose leader you just tried to kill. Shadowfang Keep, not a good choice for a base. Not for him.
Well, in a true lore sense, though, Shadowfang Keep, like, it's amazing this place ever fell. It is extremely defendable. Like, it would be so difficult to assault this place with an actual military. I mean, obviously you can't plan for people like us who just come in and grab you by the collar and throw you out the window. But if he was just wanting to hold out and, like, fight off the undead, this would be a great place to do it. I mean, there's only the one drawbridge in, although of course fighting undead seems terrible. Well, he's undead, so it doesn't matter. I was going to be like, they don't even have to eat, they just wait for you to die, but he's dead, so it'd just be a waiting game, I guess.
Fighting undead seems terrible.
Well, because, like, one of my favorite tactics that of, like, old medieval times is that they would, when they were quote unquote sieging a castle, they would just surround the castle and camp out and wait for you to run out of food.
Mm-hmm.
And
throwing feces and rotten corpses into your walls with catapults.
Yeah, exactly. And,
well, if you do that with Forsaken, you're basically feeding them.
Well, true. Don't do that to Forsaken.
But it's same premise. And so that didn't really apply since everyone in here is undead, so you can't, like, wait for them to starve or anything like that. Maybe run out of embalming lotion or something. I'm not sure how much upkeep undead have to maintain. So it's really defendable. You only have the one drawbridge, and everything around you, like, there's a mountain to one side, which, in reality, you can't just climb up it like you can in Warcraft, or fly up it very easily. Most of the actual lore stories, what is the word for the air military? Air Force, thank you. Isn't very large. I mean, the Alliance's Air Force is really like a few gnome helicopters and the Wildhammer dwarves that ride their griffins, but there's not that many of either of those. I guess they do have the giant Skyfire now. They didn't used to. Thanks, gnomes. And then on the other side is a cliff and water at the bottom. So I mean, it'd be really easy to defend. I don't know if you could really, like, make an assault out of it or anything like assault from there, because assaulting Undercity sounds terrible, but
yeah,
it's just an extended thought of that. It was probably just, even if it is that close to the people that you probably made the most angry, still really, he's actually really close to both people he made angry. I mean, he's actually in between a rock and a hard place. South of him is Gilneas, which there's bound to be some Worgen that got away from there. And north of him is Undercity. Where do you go?
Yeah.
Leave for Pandaria. That's what I say. It's a good a time as any to switch continents.
Yeah.
So, Tony, lore grade.
Honestly, with how shoddy I feel like they did the lore, I'm gonna give it like a 5.
So like if
I'm thinking like a letter grade, we'll go with a D+.
Okay. And it's not that the lore is bad; they just present it so terribly, and it's so choppy and in so many different places.
Mm-hmm.
I think is the biggest problem. Like, the lore here is actually good, but it's all tied up in racial starting quests.
Yeah. And then just the no follow through with it. Sylvanas got killed. Well,
whatevs.
Whatever, it's fine.
Good thing the Valkyrie can bring her back to life, because otherwise that would have been bad.
Yeah, like, ugh. Duh.
All right, Florian, lore grade.
I'm gonna say a B. A B. A B sounds fair.
A B sounds fair.
It sounds fair. There's enough lore here that's interesting, especially if you include what previously happened with Aragal and all that. But it's just not. It's not well told.
Is there actually anywhere to see that lore?
The previous lore, you mean?
Yeah, I had never, until I looked this kind of stuff up, I had never even heard of Archmage Arugal.
Yeah, you can't. That's...
It doesn't actually exist, it's just there for people to see.
Yeah, so you pretty much have to just Google it if you want to know about it, because the quests are... I mean, all the quests are no longer there. They were removed during Cataclysm.
Right, along with way too much other lore.
Uh-huh.
Alright, and myself, I will give a lore grade. It gets so many points off for just how difficult it is to find this lore. Because it's not bad lore, you just can't get it. You would have to start a worgen, do a worgen to at least level 20, and then you have to start an undead, and do the undead to level 20-ish in order to actually get the lore for this dungeon to make sense. And then the lore inside, these worgen, if you haven't done any of this, you just have no idea why they're there. It's why do you hate this guy? He's I smell him, he's here, let's go kill him. It's what do you do? I don't know. He's undead, I just don't like undead. They make good chew bones, though. Anyway, so that's going to put lore at a flat C. And that's going to bring our final score to a flat B, which I'm not sure if one of you already entered that for me. If you did, awesome, thank you. Or if I just forgot to delete it from copy pasta. So, it's a flat B overall. The only thing really saving this is the strong gameplay. The ambience has held up really well. And the biggest downfall of this is that if you don't care about the lore at all, then it's a fantastic dungeon. And I'm sorry that you can't do it technically as current content anymore, because it was an extremely enjoyable dungeon. If you don't care about lore, then, this bumps it up to an A-, which is, pretty fantastic, but lore just drags it to the ground like a sad child. So, I don't know what you want to take from that, but
that's an awkward relation, drags to the ground like a sad child.
Have you seen sad children? They just throw themselves to the ground like some sort of monster just grabbed them, and they scream and cry. And it's are you okay? Do you need a hug, child? Pat, pat, pat. Because they do. They just fall. It's gravity just became 10 times heavier. And it's funny when my 5-year-old does it. It takes everything I have to not look at her and laugh, because she'll just fall to the ground. She doesn't kick and tantrum or anything. She'll just fall to the ground and cry. And I'm and sometimes it's for no reason at all. I'm just anyway. The difficulties of being a parent. Sometimes your kid cries for the most hilarious of reasons.
And you have to not laugh.
She'll be sitting on the couch, crying, "I'm cold," when there's 2 blankets sitting next to her. It's you could grab a blanket. Anyway.
Blankets are good.
So that brings us to the end of the show, everybody, now that I've made it nice and awkward for everybody. If you want to contact the show, you can find us on the Castbar at gmail.com. Send us a tweet at Castbar Podcast. Call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. You can also find all of our old shows on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube, where you're more than welcome to leave a comment if you want to leave us feedback or give us a question to present on a later show. For our bumpers, the music is done by Kevin MacLeod. You can find all of his work at incomtech.com. A bunch of it's royalty-free, which means you can use it for free, but you have to give him credit, or you can buy it, and, you don't have to tell anyone anything. You can just say that it's yours. A little bit of personal stuff. You can find me at Twitter, which is at Schwahn Michael, which is SCHWAHNMICHAEL. You can find it in the show notes. Evan, unfortunately, was not able to be here this week as he is sick. His Twitter is EDCWow. Florian, where are people able to find you?
The easiest way to find me is just by emailing the Castbar, but no one has done that yet, so I'm probably just going to stop telling people to do that. You can also follow me on Twitter if for some reason you like twittering, at Phalanx, spelled F-A-L-A-N-G-X, which I intend to fix in the near future.
Not gonna lie, I'm starting to really like Twitter, and I'm really actually enjoying the fact that it's integrated into Warcraft, and I feel a little guilty for that, but I really kind of do. It's like Twitter is like what I wanted originally out of Facebook. It's like I don't need to know all of that much. Just give me a little snippet so I can have like it's like open world text conversations. Like I can text people a lot, and it's like a global text. That's all it is. 140 characters or less. It's just like texting everybody all at the same time, and it's awesome because I'm weird, I guess, but I definitely enjoy Twitter. Even though I don't use it as much as some people do. I know some people who are like Twitter fiends. I try and stay relatively active on it. I've actually posted 2 tweets since we've been recording. Tony, are people able to find you anywhere?
I would say their best bet if they really wanted to find me is email the Castbar and maybe you'll tell me about it.
Nope. I will just be like, oh no, that guy's no.
Yeah. Probably like, I don't even know who that guy is.
Episode what? His name was what? No, he definitely doesn't exist.
You're gonna like edit the episode later and they'll be listening to it again. No, I can swear his name was in there, and every time I talk or you mention my name, there's just dead air.
No, I'll just put in the Murgle noise.
What?
they brought a Murgle on. Anyway. You guys, let's get out of here. Have a good night.
Yep.
You are out of time.